Welcome everyone to our LinkedIn Live event, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Chantal Milloy, your host and moderator. I've spent over 25 years in business transformation roles, thinking about the impact that change has on the people in the organization. Now, as co-founder and COO at Levvel, I'm honored to lead a team that specializes in helping leaders and employees navigate through business transformation with the goal of increasing adoption. The integration of AI in the workplace is and will be a massive change. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody joining us today. And we're diving in to chat about just that, AI adoption in the workplace. So let's get to know our panelists a little bit with some introductions. We'll start with Shveta, Gideon, and then Sam. And throughout the event, if you do have questions and comments, please type them in. We won't be taking live questions, but we will be reviewing and replying to all of them in the coming days. So let me open up introductions with you, Shveta.
Thank you, Chantal. And it's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Shveta Malhan, and I'm a managing partner and co-founder at Yenza 3. We are a consulting company specializing in AI transformation, and we deploy a uniquely people lens to solve for situations and challenges in this space. My background has been at the intersection of technology and people, and I lean on that experience to solve for modern workforce challenges. And I'm very excited to be part of this discussion.
Awesome. Thank you. Gideon, we'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Chantal, for having me. My name is Gideon Christian. I'm an associate professor of AI and law, as well as the University Research Chair, AI and law at the University of Calgary. So my research focuses primarily on identifying elements of racial bias in artificial intelligence systems, and also highlighting these racial bias issues so as to have AI systems that are designed with racial bias mitigated, or if not eliminated. And prior to my position, or my current position at the University of Calgary, I was a technology lawyer with the Government of Canada at the Department of Justice.
Awesome. Thank you, Gideon. And Sam.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Sam Hale, the co-founder and CEO of Nurishe'd. The evolution of our previous company, Nutrimeals, started as a food company that went more in the direction of nutrition. Now we leverage AI every day, not only in our day-to-day work, but also providing an opportunity for people to manage and also prevent chronic illness using their diet and nutrition. We're currently working with a wide range of things, including registered dietitians that actually supervise our model, and also microbiome tests where we can actually personalize the meal plans and also the products that they get depending on what chronic condition they may have. Prior to this, I was a financial analyst at a large conglomerate called Nutrien, previously Agrium, and I've been kind of just shifting my work style into my passion and providing help to others.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Great to have all of you. Let's head in. Let's talk about our first discussion point, which is the impact of integrating AI in the workplace on the people. I'm going to throw to you, Shveta, to start the conversation, because as managing partner at Yenza 3, you spend a lot of time helping organizations effectively integrate AI into their operating models. So based on your experience, how will AI reshape roles and organizational structures, driving initiatives forward and help foster cultures of innovation?
Mm-hmm. Very interesting question, Chantal. And I will start by saying that the world of work environment, workforce is going to dramatically shift and change. It is evolving at a ferocious pace, and the speed of change that we are witnessing is unprecedented. And with this, the organizations are right now struggling with the threat of relevance. And if an organization is struggling with the threat of relevance, that ripples down through all layers of the organizations. Every business unit, department, team is going to struggle with the same. How am I contributing value to the greater organization? And this sentiment is rippling to even at the individual level. And with this, the complexity and scale of disruption, people's roles are going to be impacted and the displacement is going to happen, but it might happen in a variety of flavors. Like with this super powerful technology at our fingertips today, we will augment our capabilities in dramatic ways. We will be able to bring value to work in ways that we had not thought about before. At the same time, when we look at zoom into workflows in our organization, we will be able to find out areas and avenues in the workforce where we can introduce more greater automation for efficiency and productivity. And at the same time, there will be certain pieces of the workflow that might completely disappear and won't be needed anymore. So as you can see, this is a very complex and challenge with change, and it is going to be happening at scale. It's like that movie title, Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's what we are witnessing. And there is no end state defined for this change, at least not yet. So we have a situation where organizations will have to think about how do we become agile, how do we become nimble and pivot and evolve as the work landscape shifts and evolves with us. So maybe we'll see flatter organizations, we will see more cross collaboration happening in organizations, more experimentation, and people will have to kind of stretch their capability and skill set to wear different hats to contribute meaningfully and be relevant in the workforce.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Shweta. Gideon, what are your thoughts on that topic? And when it comes to, the impact on the people, but from your lens, what are you hearing there?
Undoubtedly, AI is going to lead to massive innovation in the way organizations hire, the way they retain, the way they evaluate, the way they assess in terms of performance evaluation and performance assessment of their workforce. We are seeing increasing adoption of artificial intelligence technologies in many sectors, including HR. And this increasing adoption, of course, is commonsensical because of the not just the innovation, but the increased efficiency, the reduced cost of scouting and searching for talent, being able to analyze huge volumes of resume in order to identify like the most prospective among these. Before AI, these are things that has to be done manually. You need a huge HR team basically reviewing resume, paper resume, or maybe emailed resume individually to see whether the applicants actually match the job requirements. These days with HR, you don't need individuals to be able to manually match these things. You basically have an AI software that assesses and analyzes these resumes to basically identify the one that matches the requirements, then of course push them forward for further assessment, and the one that don't match the assessment, basically more like kind of sending them into the garbage bin. And it's able to accomplish this within the fraction of time it will take human reviewers or to manually review these things. So that reduces the time spent on this work. It enhances efficiency. So any organization that is not really, especially organization that is into huge hiring, that is not really at this point in time looking at innovating using this technology, definitely is going to be left behind in terms of its ability to attract the best talent. Is going to be left behind also. So it is important for organizations to consider using these tools. So maybe as we go on, we'll also see in terms of the benefits of using these tools, there are also challenges that comes with them which need to be addressed.
Yeah. Thanks, Gideon. It's we think about recruitment which you just talked about, and it's a portion of what we do in our company, and any company that looks for talent for an organization is already thinking about workforce and what that means. And Sam, something interesting that triggered for me earlier, we'd had a conversation on you're building a business, and there are AI roles within your business that we don't want to call them people. I think there's been a huge debate on, are they people within your structure of your organization? But on this topic, yes, what can what light can you shed for us on your experience of AI roles that don't require humans right now?
Sure. I think to piggyback off of Gideon as well is that we have to remember that HR stands for human resources. So there's always going to be some type of human interaction amongst each other, just because, we aren't all machines. So I think it's important that we have, tasks that can be done by these AI tools or AI powered tools, but there's still going to be that human connection that we really need to understand from a personal level. Because when it comes to the role of HR, you're not always going to be experiencing the same thing. And a lot of times you see with AI or biases, it's done by trends, right? But not the thing is with humans that we don't all feel or all think the same way. So I think it's really important that we take everything with a grain of salt. And of course, we can use these tools to help us, but they won't replace us. In our organization specifically, as you were kind of alluding to, is that we're small, we're lean, and we do as much as we can with a small team. And we use kind of AI assistance as much as we can, whether it's Copilot for our code review, understanding a problem that we're trying to solve, even high level documents that we need to produce. We kind of joke that although we have a team of 5 on the Nourish side and 5 on the Nutrimeal side, it's 10 in total, we still have like maybe 20% of our workforce being a AI agent or some type of AI tool. And again, it's not that they're replacing the work that we're doing, but it helps us streamline our current tasks, but also learn very quickly on things that we're not experts about. So if you take an LLM, for an example, and use ChatGPT to help you craft a document or review an email or have a certain cadence in an email that you're writing, it's really useful in things that way. And then on the technical side, as I mentioned, we use it for, reviewing code, but it's also not a tool for just doing, it's a tool for learning. And if we take one example that just happened last week, is that we have one of our intermediate level developers learning some new code that he's never used before. Well, what he's done is he's reviewing our existing developers' code and putting questions into the Copilot where he can say, okay, what is the developer trying to do in this situation? And it can kind of translate that into like really layman terms and helps him understand the models and the actual structure of the code that the other developer created, right? So a ton of different ways you can utilize it for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Sam. I think one thing I'd heard someone say was if you're using ChatGPT as an example, ask it a question in such a way that says, tell me more about this as though I'm a 10-year-old, and it does a fantastic job from a learning perspective of a complex concept that you yourself may not be aware of. So I agree. I'm going to move us to discussion topic number 2. Which is around best practices and strategies for successful AI adoption across functions. And Gideon, I'm going to start with you because in your research on technology, ethics, racial justice, you advocate strongly for responsible development and deployment of AI technologies in areas that are critical to social equity. So what advice would you give to senior leaders as they plan for effective AI integration in their organizations to ensure that outcomes don't negatively impact or cause harm to their employees?
That is a very important question you just asked, Chantal. But before I answer that question, let me first of all, maybe provide a background as to why that question is important. Artificial intelligence technology is trained. I mean, we are seeing this technology being increasingly adopted in HR, in the areas of things like resume screening software, chatbot for interview, performance evaluation algorithm, which is a good thing. But one thing we need to note is the fact that artificial intelligence technology is trained on huge amounts of data. Now let's narrow down to resume screening softwares, right? AI softwares for screening resumes. These softwares are basically trained on huge amounts of data. And one thing with AI is that when it's trained with data, it learns patterns in the data. Now the question then is, what data are these AI tools predominantly trained on? What kind of resumes? Of course, resumes from individuals from the predominant racial group, right? And AI learns that pattern. When it learns that pattern in its prediction or screening or analysis, it regurgitates that pattern. So what is this saying? This is basically highlighting the possibility of AI tools, perpetuating racial barriers against individuals, especially individuals from the minority racial communities. And that may probably raise the question, but AI is subjective. It doesn't, know race. Not really. The fact is that in Canada, we have a charter that prohibit discrimination on the basis of, among other things, race and sex. And that is why my resume doesn't have my race. I don't include my race or my gender in resumes I submit. And most resumes I've seen, I've never seen anyone with these factors. In some other countries outside Canada, I have seen developing countries that has resume that contain these things. In Canada, you don't include this in your resume because the charter prohibits the employer from discriminating. From discrimination on the basis of this factor. So to prevent that situation, you don't have to include your race or gender in your resume to prevent that from happening. So if we don't have these factors included in our resumes in Canada, the question then is, how does AI then, is that not a kind of foolproof prevention of AI discriminating on the basis of these factors? The answer is no, because there are other ways AI can intelligently discern your race, your gender, and a lot of things about you that are not included in your resume. And these things are known as, in the case of race, proxies of race. Your name can be one of them. Your postal code or street where you live can tell AI about your race, right? In fact, even in some cases, the institutions you attended, like in the US where you have, HCBU schools or schools that are predominantly white or predominantly black, those are elements AI can use to detect your race from your resume, even without you expressly indicating this. So when you have these tools trained on predominantly resume predominantly from a particular racial group, it tends to learn those patterns that are unique to individuals from that group. So when you are using this software to screen resume of applicant, there is the likelihood that it will screen out resume of applicants from those minority racial group because it has learned pattern of predominantly the dominant racial group and hence uses that pattern in screening resume. So that means that individuals from those predominant racial group are more likely to be screened in. Mm-hmm. So the elements of racial bias, it's one big deal when it comes to deployment of AI tools in HR. And this is one area employers have to be very conscious about to ensure that there are a sort of internal mechanism to help to serve as a guardrail to address this issue of racial bias in AI. Now, that is one of them. Another important factors that management also need to look at, of course, this is one that cuts across racial divide, the issue of privacy and, of course, data security, right? These AI tools are trained on huge amounts of data, and these data are retained in the system even after the tool have been used to screen in or out of job applicants. So what are the data security measures around these tools? The information that are contained in this process of resume screening or hiring, what happens to them? When are they retained by the organization? How secure are they in the organization database? Does an organization has a sort of data retention policy that basically determine when this information or personal information of these job applicants are destroyed? That is when they are no longer relevant to the organization. We have seen some cases where organizations collect this data without the knowledge of the individuals involved. These data are eventually sold to third parties. What are organization policies surrounding this? So these are some, among many other things, these are some important factors organizations, especially managements, need to be looking at when it comes to deploying artificial intelligence tools in their hiring process.
Yeah, I agree, Gideon. We could do an entire LinkedIn Live on that topic, which I might invite you back for. So hold on that. It's fascinating and there's a lot to dive into. And it is such an important message to organizational leaders as right now they're contemplating these things. And Sam, what are you hearing in that? And what do you want to add to that conversation from your perspective for leaders?
Yeah, I think that, it depends on the size of the organization, primarily on what the functions are being used for. Again, as I mentioned before, there are biases that are built in just through, historical events or Gideon mentioned postal codes or naming conventions or things like that. And, that's where it gets a little bit tricky because it only knows what it knows and it doesn't have that creativity and to think for itself. It's still learning from everything that has been put into the internet, basically, right? So I mean, definitely something that will be an ongoing improvement, I think. But I think you have to also be careful and not to do the total reverse and try to do the opposite. We saw a lot of kickback on Google, for example, where it was generating images that wouldn't make sense historically, just based on different parts of in the time periods and things like that. So I think that we have to be very careful on not to push it either way, but I think moderating it is probably the best thing that we can do for now.
Yeah, I think so. And Shveta, what are you hearing there? I mean, you work with organizations at this exact stage. Are they contemplating these things, and what thoughts would you add?
Absolutely. This data privacy bias is front and center for most organizations. I also wanted to kind of double click on the HR conversation about HR integrating technologies into their capability. Yes, for sure. Performance is going to be impacted, recruitment, how HR is going to support their typical traditional processes is where AI is being introduced. But at the same time, we have to also look at the role of HR for supporting transformation outside of their department broadly as well. Because if HR is not having a seat at the table with the CEO or the CEO and the CTO, this will be looked at as an engineering problem, and people dimension will be lost in the mix. And people are the primary audience, like they are the ones that we have to kind of keep front and center when we're looking at this transformation. And one thing that will help HR strengthen their voice at the table is their access to people data. And if we look at HR capability right now, yes, data like HR systems, we have variety of HR systems in a typical HR department, but the data is siloed, it's not connected, it's not configured and structured in a way where we can draw insights that can help support us understand what is the readiness of the organization when it comes to AI implementation, which pockets of the organizations have friction and resistance. Because if we don't have that lens, if HR doesn't have that lens, then we will be applying all the toolkits and the tactics that we have to support change broadly. And broad stroke solutions might not meet the needs of this complex change that we are all going through. So having effective listening strategy is one thing that I would encourage all HR teams to focus on. How can we integrate probes in our ecosystem so that not only are we collecting explicit data from our people, but we are also getting permission to tap into implicit data, which is the digital footprint of employees, so that we can understand and we can make network maps and collaboration maps to see who is talking to who, how often, with what intensity. Then we can tailor our change strategies to support and meet the individual needs and meet the person where they are sitting on the change curve. Then our change strategies will have much more deeper impact, and we'll be able to support this change at scale in the organization.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We see the same thing in our work at the heart of transformation. And at the end of the day, it's people that don't show up tomorrow if they're not happy with what you've implemented. Forget that. They're going to need to be led and integrated into the new technology and solutions. Absolutely. Let's move to discussion point 3. It does lead us there really naturally, which is addressing pushback from employees. So specifically the people and how they're feeling about all of this and what we as leaders can do to support. And we're going to start with you, Sam. And obviously as co-founder of Nurishe'd and Nutrimeals, you're leveraging AI. We talked about that to educate and empower people towards better health outcomes. So what advice would you give to leaders about the importance of transparent communication and education, empowering employees, if you will, or your customers in that lens when it comes to their implementations of AI in their organizations? How would you address that?
Yeah, thanks for touching on the customer as well, because I do think there are two different types of individuals. We have both the adoption from our employees and also the adoption from our customers. I think the biggest thing on the customer side is that you want to be very transparent with how you're using the data. And I think that it also takes a little bit of time for policy to catch up. So I'll give you an example on how we use customer data now. Excuse me. And so our whole goal is to obviously provide dietitian recommendation services to either manage or prevent a chronic illness. However, although we do have data points where we can extract that and make a recommendation from our AI engine, we actually still have to be supervised by a registered dietitian. And I think that's a good thing, because it does take that human aspect back out of it and has a constant review to really, vet the recommendation of the AI itself. Again, it's going to be obviously needed for reimbursement from insurance companies and things like that, because although we're working with a lot of different data and a lot of different privacy, when it comes to PHI or personal health data, there's a lot of different hoops you have to jump through to not only to host it, but also to use it. So I think it's, again, right now it's a hybrid of not only being able to provide a service using AI and the data, but also with the human there being front and center and kind of being the controller overall. From an employee aspect, I think that, whether your employees use it telling you or not telling you, they're probably going to end up using it at some point. So as a leader, it's good to implement it properly. You want to make sure that you have the right accounts. Just for an example, if you use like OpenAI for enterprises, they're not going to use your data to train their models. Whereas if your employees are using the free version, they can use that data to train their models. So if they're putting proprietary data in there, that's not something you want to have as public domain, right? So I think as a leader, it's really important to set up your organization sooner than later with the tools that your employees will need, because they're going to be doing it themselves anyway, whether it's to save time writing emails, to draft a document, all different sorts of services. And if you have a specific use case that is trade secret, you want to make sure that you keep that close to home and make sure that you have the right accounts to protect yourself as well as the leader of the organization, because that onus is on you. I believe in the US as well, if there are data leaks, as a director of the company, you are personally liable. So you want to make sure that you are doing it properly, crossing your T's and dotting your I's. And I think that's just comes with transparency, right? And if we can tell our customers and our employees how we're using AI to kind of streamline or improve our business, then that's the first step you can do as policy.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I couldn't agree with you more. And that also is a 1-hour conversation in of itself that we may invite you back for. So, Shveta, what are you hearing? What can you add to that?
I will echo the same sentiment that Sam mentioned. This change needs radical transparency, and all layers of the organization must understand what is my organization's stance on AI, how is it impacting the organization, and how it impacts me in the in return. And in addition to that, I would say that this is a change where we have to think beyond just typical change management, because if you look at the genesis of change management, it started with like a very structured approach. There was one change that was identified, and then we applied a top-down approach to manage resistance for change and greater adoption. But because, again, this is such a complex change that we are all experiencing, I would suggest that we as an organization and practitioners in the change space need to look at enabling change at scale. How do we build an ecosystem in the organization where we can scale change initiatives, where it's not just top-down approach? There's a time and place for top-down for sure, but how do we balance a more grassroots approach as well, so people know what change is happening, what is coming down the pipe, where's my voice in the mix? How do we get people involved early in shaping the change versus being told after the change has been identified is going to go a long way as we think about mass adoption, and not just adoption, adaptation of organizations as we go through this.
Yeah, I agree, Shveta. And we deal the same with our clients, where we really encourage leaders for that full transparency and cadence, and even if every Friday you knew there was going to be an update as an employee, whether there was much progress or much to say on that Friday, well, from Monday to Thursday, you're not worried about it, and so people need a bit of peace in their day to day as things are continually changing and transforming. So I love what you said there. Let's move into our last discussion point, which is building future-ready organizations. Shveta, we're going to start with you. And how can leaders ensure that organizational strategies are aligning with the vision for AI? Because boy, there's a real crossroads, isn't there, right now, on how to do this and do this well, and the work you do is at the heart of that. So, what can you share with our audience today?
Yeah, and this is a continuation of our previous discussion thread. Leaders have to, first of all, be an active and visible participant in this change. Like if a leader is expecting that everybody in the organization has to adopt, I'm going to use ChatGPT as an example. That's the most obvious tool that most organizations are experimenting with. It will be a very powerful example for the leader to go up in front of their employees to talk about how their lived experience with ChatGPT is, what worked, what didn't work. If there was hallucination, did it prevent them from engaging with the technology, or did they employ workarounds to see how can what did I do differently to continue using that piece of technology to enhance and augment the work that I do as a CEO or a CTO or a manager or a team leader to do my work better? And beyond that, I would say for organizations to really look at AI differently, they have to build a culture of experimentation. There is no playbook for this particular change. And the more safe people feel that they have the permission to engage with the technology, the better the businesses will be able to innovate and figure out their next pivot point organizationally. If there is fear, which there is a lot of fear associated with change. And if we don't get ahead of that fear, then the potential of organization to really embrace this technology and be relevant will be curtailed quite a bit. So I would say leads by example, be an active participant in this change for all of your organization to see you as their leader who is experimenting, who is taking risks, who's failing, but not slowing down will go a long way. And if in the process jobs are impacted, be open to have a conversation with your people about that what did we do as an organization with a particular role or a particular individual whose job was impacted? Did we help reskill them and realign their capabilities somewhere else in the organization? And if we weren't, what did we do about it? Like, and how did we help solve for this at an individual level? So creating a healthy level of trust and transparency will really help organizations maximize the use of this powerful technology that is at our disposal.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, trust and transparency. I pulled right out of what you just said there. And Gideon, maybe you could add to that conversation. I think trust and transparency is going to be massive here.
So when it comes to readiness, I think when it comes to AI or integration of AI, especially in competitive business environment, I think the buzzword will be it's either you innovate or you abdicate. So AI provides organizations with opportunities to be able to innovate the way they do business, the way they provide services. And when you find yourself in a very competitive environment, your ability to adopt AI before your competitors puts you ahead of the game. So they're basically trying to catch up with you. But that would depend on if you have an organization that is proactive, not just waiting until the technology has become so dominant, everyone is using it before you now jump in. By then, you basically will be floating with others. Why not be proactive? Have a team, an innovative team that basically looks around. What technology is out there that we can use to better our services, to better our business? Or what technology or AI technology can we develop to enhance the way we do our business or provide our services? When you have a team that is proactive, thinking about that, even if it entails experimenting with that technology, not all experiments turns out well. You may have 10, 9 may turn out terribly bad. If one turns out good, that one that turns out good will definitely put you ahead or even make up far more than the 9 experiment that turned out bad. So there's nothing wrong with experimenting with these technologies. See where it can take your business. If it works out, it keeps you on the edge before others are basically trying to catch up with you and your adoption of this technology. So this is where management needs to come in, basically be looking at. Don't just sit back and wait until, everyone is using the technology, then you start using it. You're basically not different from the others. And I mean, I can use myself as an example here. I mean, I'm not an organization or business, but I was trained as a lawyer. By the time I started researching in this area 10 years ago, you hardly see anybody in law thinking about relationship between artificial intelligence and law. It's just some something out there that when I tell people I'm researching on that, they think I'm crazy because they don't see any relationship between. They think artificial intelligence is more okay, coding, computer engineering, computer science. That has nothing to do with law. But that is way, way different today. That relationship is now very clear. So being ahead of others in the game gives you an edge. And that is one thing organizations should be looking at, especially those in a very competitive environment.
Yeah, thanks, Gideon. I agree that transparency, and then now into experimentation, right? And giving organizations, giving their people the space to experiment safely, which means guardrails, right? Leaders do have to agree how they're going to want to bring this into the organization ahead of the curve, as you said. And Sam, what are you hearing there? What can you add from your experience?
Sure, I'll play devil's advocate just a little bit because I think, being first is great, but I think being a close second is also a bit safer sometimes. And that's weird for me to say as like the entrepreneur here, right? So what I always kind of do is go into it with a grain of salt, and that, all these tools from face value seem great, but it's kind of like an NDA, right? You sign it, but you never share something you don't want someone to know. And I think that it's important, kind of like leaping back to the last question as well, as being an advocate as the leader and understanding that there needs to be proper training in place where you don't share information that you don't want the AI to know or to be referenced again into the future. And I think that, understanding how the tools work first may be better than just jumping into it right away. And, you can kind of play the field a little bit, whether you're using Cloud or Claude, or OpenAI or whatever it might be. So yeah, just a little bit of pushback from being the first. And, you may lag a little bit, but sometimes that's not a bad thing. And again, really weird for me to say that, but I think that's just from my experience now, shining through a little bit. But yeah.
Well, someone has to be the first, Sam.
Yeah, someone does.
I think that from that perspective, though, someone with bigger pockets than me can be the first one, and then hopefully I can piggyback just a little bit.
More room for error and experiments gone wrong. More capital.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Gosh. Well, the time is flying by, and the discussion, as I said, I see many topics that we might invite each of you back for different occasions. But let's go to some closing remarks, and I want to give each of you the opportunity to leave our viewers and audience with your message to them on this topic of AI adoption in the workplace from your unique lens. So Gideon, let's start with you. And what do you want to leave our audience thinking about today that's, at the heart of importance for you?
Well, I'm pro AI, even though my research and area of work basically spend more time, identifying issues with the technology. And the reason why I spend more time identifying the issues with the technology is to help make AI equitable in the society. Basically, the designer should be conscious of this so that we are designing a technology that really serves human good. And AI has that capacity, to serve human good or humans for good. So when it comes to organizations, if your organization is not using AI or considering using it, then basically you are living in the stone age at this time. It's very important to be proactive, see ways AI can help enhance recruitment, workplace management, and even performance evaluation. But while doing that, also be conscious of the risk of adopting this technology, the issue, bias, and privacy issues. You need to address this issue in order to maximally benefit from the deployment of this technology. So I'm very much in support of the deployment of this technology in human resource and employment, but I am even more pro addressing the issues, the concerns surrounding this technology before they are adopted in such a way organizations will definitely benefit from innovation and from adoption of AI in their workplace.
Awesome. Thank you, Gideon. And Sam, what closing messages do you want to leave our viewers with?
Sure. Be inquisitive, be curious, check it out, understand it. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's going to be part of our daily lives moving forward, whether it's, your fridge making recommendations on what food you need next, or using it to automate your workflows or whatever. So just, I think, get used to it. Don't be scared. And I think understanding how to prompt what you're actually looking for is also really important. Like, I can foresee that being a separate role in the future as a prompt engineer, something along those lines where that one person may have multiple different business units under them, and being able to get the AI to produce better results and more efficiently. I'm definitely pro AI. I think it can be used to help a lot of people in a lot of different ways. It can also go the other way as well. A lot of security risks as well that come with AI. But again, I think it just takes that moderation and just hoping people use it for good rather than bad. But I'm also happy to answer any questions that people have later on if they want to contact LinkedIn or anything like that. So please feel free to expand the conversation.
Amazing. Thanks, Sam. And Shveta, let's get your closing remarks as well.
Yeah, I am on the same page as Gideon and Sam. I would say embrace AI, because in the near future, it won't be AI replacing humans. It will be humans augmented by AI who will replace those who aren't. And now we have this beautiful way in which we can feel empowered. We don't have to wait for the government to come up with the right policies. We don't have to wait for the organization to invest in our reskilling and upping our capability. These tools are accessible for free. I think it's the first time in human history that a tool as powerful as Gen AI has been accessible to billions for free. Let's make use of this opportunity. There's enough content available on YouTube, on Google, on whichever platform you're used to serve your unique personalized needs for upskilling yourselves. And this is the time when we can, piggybacking on Gideon's example, I never knew that I was being really curious about digital art and being able to do something about it. But yes, with the tools that are at our disposal, I was able to pick that up as a hobby. So there's no shortage of bringing your capabilities, your hobbies to life with the tools and technologies that we have at our disposal. So lean in. Remember, it's AI augmented humans that we are competing with, not just AI.
I love that. Love that. Lean in is our closing sentiment here. Pro AI group, which we knew we would have a fantastic discussion. So formally, we're coming to a close. I want to thank each and every one of you panelists for joining us with each of your unique perspectives. It's going to be rich contributions for our audience. To our viewers, thank you for joining us. It takes an audience to make these things dynamic. We'll review your questions and comments, and we'll reply to everyone in the coming days and connect you with our panelists as needed. You see them here. You can connect directly on LinkedIn, but any questions you have, please let us know. And have an awesome day. We're going to close there, and we'll sit in silence as the curtain comes down, as they say, and stare at all of you until that happens. Have an awesome day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.